Lake Erie Railway is known for having one of the most eclectic locomotive rosters, from movie stars to rail fan favorites, but this locomotive might be one of the best. With America being built by the railroads, what better way to celebrate the 250 years of independence with a special locomotive? During America's bicentennial in 1976, railroads came together in the celebration of 200 years of independence with special paint schemes for the locomotives. The main railroad to focus on in this case was the Norfolk and Western with their 1776 locomotive. This locomotive was part of the inspiration for Wheeling and Lake Erie's paint scheme, due to the fact that most modern Wheeling and Lake Erie trackage and complexes were once part of the Norfolk and Western. But the goal for the Wheeling and Lake Erie was not to copy the paint scheme, but merely reference it and their Norfolk and Western heritage at the same time. Now we're going to go to Paul Springowski to show the differences and revisions on this unit.
Well, the paint job comes from an inspiration of what the Norfolk and Western did in 1976, and we're a year away from the 250th anniversary of independence, the semi-quincentennial. So I wondered, are the railroads going to do anything for this birthday of the country? So the 6356 was going in for rebuild in the shop, and I approached Tim Page, the superintendent of motive power. I said, we should do something for this 250th anniversary. And he said, I was thinking the same thing. So I sketched up a design that incorporated the nose stripes off of a CEFX unit, and then the tail end is like the Norfolk and Western SD45, so it's a blend of Wheeling, leaser schemes, and the Norfolk and Western. It's got a Leslie RS5T horn, and I thought that was appropriate because the Norfolk and Western used RS5Ts, and that sound hasn't been heard through the valley in, probably about 50 years at this point. And so I had an RS5T that was pretty sorry, so I put all new internals in it, new gaskets, new diaphragms, and we painted it up gold and put it on the unit. It just has to be decibel tested, but it's crucial that it's governed to 110 to 120 psi so that the solenoid valve doesn't destroy the horn. Well, as far as the paint scheme goes, I like the stripes wrapping around the side of the nose, but that's a pretty glaring detail. I'd say my favorite detail is the number boards. I 3D printed the old raised block letters that the N&W and a lot of other railroads would have used through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And originally they were just going to be stickers in the standard Wheeling font, but for something like this, you want the jewelry to really stand out. There's also a polished brass bell. That's a really nice touch. A shop employee actually purchased it with his own money, and it sounds unique. Plus the horn, that's a neat detail, but I'd say the number boards win for me.
So what are some of the revisions you had to do to the paint scheme?
Well, originally in the initial scan, the stripes went over onto the side of the battery box, but it would have looked weird from a wedge if the stripes split and then went over onto the side. So we cut the stripes and only painted them on the inside of the nose, but that meant we had to shorten the lower two. So you really don't notice it when you're shooting it, but it was an important change to make. The other big thing was the number. There was a lot of question as to what font we should use, what color should it be. A lot of the shop guys weren't too fond of the gold on the long hood, so the idea was that painting the number gold not only paid homage to the layout that the N&W had, but it offsets the gold on the long hood. And the executive decision was made by the superintendent of motive power to change the font to something that was a little bit more elegant. Originally, the number was in impact bold and white to match the traditional Wheeling font. But at first I was so opposed to it. I said, no, the colors are going to conflict. But seeing it out in the light, it was the better decision. So I'm happy that somebody stepped in and made it happen. That's Tim Page. Tim Page deserves the credit for that and enabling this project to go through. Beyond that, we wonder, originally the first iteration had a dashed yellow frame stripe, but it would have conflicted too much, so we decided to do one solid white stripe. I think it looks a lot better. But beyond that, the other original iteration did not say celebrating 250 years of independence. It was important for me to say independence because it's not 250 years of America. There's a lot more history before that. But 250 years of independence, that's what we're celebrating in 2026. So we picked a few fonts. We did one iteration with a flying letters like the Wheeling Rio Grande, but Times New Roman was classy, and they matched it perfectly. The painter Rob, he did a phenomenal job of following the original diagrams and making sure that everything was matched up to the louvers and vents and all of the angles. It was perfectly executed. Um, Beyond that, the handrails painted black above the frame, that was just some artistic license. I think it looks pretty good. Um, and the original concept did not say celebrating 250 years of America or independence. I kind of screwed it up myself. But the thought is when you see this going by at a crossing, people would just see an American train. They wouldn't know why it was painted. So it's pretty fitting to put a message on there so that you know exactly why this unit was painted. And outside of being a commemorative patriotic locomotive, it really became a display of pride for everyone in the shop. So many guys put extra effort into sanding out the little runs in the paint or polishing the bell, stuff like that. And it's not only the best paint job that we have on the railroad, but it's a symbol of everyone who's into this stuff. Guys took a lot of pride in it. So when I see this engine, sure, I see red, white, and blue America, but I see a symbol of Brewster Shop's pride. I have to give everybody who was involved in this project credit, and there's a lot of names that I haven't been able to observe, but this bell was purchased by Nolan Capone. He's a shop guy. He paid for it with his own money. To me, that's a great symbol of, like, man, you didn't have to do that. People care about this engine being perfect. So let's hear what it sounds like. Or if it's got an air leak.
So, for a rail fan, which side would be the best side to shoot this engine on, you think?
Interesting. Funny that you say that because I was worried about this blower housing blocking the W on the wheeling. So originally I had the W butted up to the end of the long hood doors, but one of my friends, Nick Santoro, actually suggested you should move it back because when you're shooting it, that blower housing is always going to block out the W. In my opinion, the engineer side is the better side to shoot because the horn's on that side and it's gold, matches the lettering. But this side has the brass bell, so I think they match pretty well and it won't matter. You know what side's the best to shoot? The side that's sunny.